I still remember the moment she said it. I'm pregnant. 3 words. Simple, blunt, dropped into the space between us like a hammer. We were sitting in the kitchen, the late-night silence stretching thin, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. I looked up from the chipped mug in my hands, the lukewarm tea forgotten. Her eyes held a kind of shaky triumph. I couldn't tell if it was joy, fear, or something else entirely. My first reaction wasn't happiness. It wasn't even fear. It was suspicion. Because deep down, I knew something didn't add up. We hadn't been intimate in a while, not in any meaningful way. I'd been having problems. Physically. Mentally. Stress had me twisted in knots, and she'd started pulling away even before that. So how could this be? But instead of speaking the doubt out loud, I nodded slowly, numb. Okay, I said. We'll figure it out. I wanted to believe her. God, I needed to believe her. I was 28, working 2 jobs to keep us afloat. She hadn't worked in months, said she wanted to focus on herself after the miscarriage the year before. I carried the guilt of that loss like a stone around my neck. I thought maybe this was a second chance, for both of us. I was wrong. Very wrong. The pregnancy became the shield she used to protect herself from questions, accountability, even basic honesty. I took on more hours. I skipped lunches. I started selling off my music gear, my last real passion, just to make ends meet. All the while, she was going to appointments that never had follow-up paperwork, texting old friends at odd hours, and getting defensive when I gently asked what was going on. But I wanted to be supportive. I wanted to be a good man. I didn't want to become one of those guys who doubts the mother of his child. Still, the whisper in the back of my mind grew louder. What if it's not yours? It all came to a head the night I came home early from a shift. My manager let me off after a light evening rush. I stopped to pick up her favorite takeout and walked through the door quietly, hoping to surprise her. And I did. She wasn't alone. She was curled up on the couch with her ex, the same man she once swore was toxic, abusive, and part of a chapter she had burned to ashes. He had his shoes off like he lived there. His hand rested lazily on her stomach. I stood frozen. A statue in the doorway. She jumped up like she'd seen a ghost. Oh my God, you're home early. No apology. No panic. Just annoyance, like I'd walked into the wrong scene. He had the audacity to nod at me. Hey, man. That was the night the curtain fell, and everything I'd buried inside erupted. She confessed only when cornered. Said she wasn't sure who the father was. Said she loved me, but she couldn't resist old feelings. Said she was confused and scared. That we'd grown apart. The usual laundry list of betrayal softened with therapeutic language and teary eyes. But I wasn't confused anymore. I was wide awake. She'd been seeing him for over a year, secret hotel visits, self-care weekends, lies built on lies. And the worst part? Her financial dependency on me was all by design. She didn't just take money. She took time, trust, belief. The weeks that followed were brutal. I moved out to a friend's basement with nothing but a trash bag of clothes and my old journal. My bank account was drained, my credit card maxed, thanks to charges I never authorized. She had me listed as an emergency contact on a fake therapy bill that never existed. I wanted to burn everything down. But something held me back. Maybe it was the tiny, nauseating possibility that the baby might be mine. So I stayed calm. I got a lawyer. Quietly, methodically, I documented everything. I started rebuilding. I didn't scream. I didn't send angry texts. I didn't throw her lies back in her face, even though every inch of me burned to do it. I shut up, and took notes. Pain has a strange way of sharpening you. I stopped seeing myself as a victim and started seeing myself as a man caught in a trap, and the only way out was through it. I started documenting everything. Every expense I'd covered. Every date and location she claimed she was at therapy or with her cousin. I requested my credit card statements and bank transfers from the last year. She'd been siphoning money for months, Venmo transactions to names I didn't recognize, cash withdrawals right after I'd given her grocery money. One time she said she needed gas for a prenatal appointment and spent the money at a rooftop bar. The math was ugly. The story it told was worse. I reached out to a family law attorney. She was blunt but kind. "You need a paternity test," she said. "It'll be tough if she resists. But you have a right to know." The idea of questioning whether the baby was mine made me feel like garbage. But so did the truth. The two weren't mutually exclusive anymore. My lawyer helped me file a court order. We framed it around my willingness to take responsibility, if the child was biologically mine. That "if" felt cold, but it was the only thing keeping my sanity intact. When the court notified her, she exploded. "You're accusing me of lying while I'm carrying your child," she shouted over the phone, voice trembling. I didn't respond. I just repeated the same sentence. "I want to be a good father. But I won't be manipulated." The waiting was the worst. While the legal process churned forward at a snail's pace, I was rebuilding my life from scratch. I picked up a third shift at a warehouse. Moved into a small studio above a garage. The ceiling leaked when it rained and the heating barely worked, but it was mine. I bought a used guitar at a pawn shop for $20 and started playing again, sometimes until 3 a.m. Each day I got a little stronger. I started therapy, real therapy, and unspooled the knots I'd been carrying for years. Turns out, this wasn't the first time I'd let someone drain me dry. It started long before her. Then came the DNA results. I opened the envelope sitting alone in my car, parked outside a 24-hour diner. 99% probability of non-paternity. I read it once. Then again. Then I laughed. Not the joyful kind. Not the bitter kind, either. It was the laugh of a man finally stepping out of a long, foggy tunnel. When I called to tell her, she didn't answer. When I messaged her, she blocked me. A few days later, she posted a maternity shoot on Instagram with her ex smiling beside her, his hand cradling the baby bump like a prize. The caption: "After all the pain, we found each other again. Love always wins." I stared at that photo for a long time. And then, I deleted every trace of her. It wasn't over, though. Not really. Because something had shifted deep in me. She didn't just betray me. She forced me to confront the way I let people use me. And that was the gift hidden inside the nightmare. I stopped trying to prove I was good enough for anyone. I stopped rescuing people who didn't want to be saved. I stopped apologizing for setting boundaries. I joined a men's group for survivors of emotional abuse. I spoke, I listened, I learned. I started a podcast with a friend about emotional recovery. I even got featured in an article about financial manipulation in relationships, my first taste of turning pain into power. And then, something strange happened. Months later, I got a voicemail from her. Just static for a few seconds, and then her voice. "Hey, things didn't work out. He left again. I was wondering if we could talk. I made mistakes, I know, but..." Click. I didn't call back. But I did wonder. Was that the twist? Her coming back broken? No. The twist was this. I didn't care anymore. There's a silence that follows betrayal, a kind that rings louder than screaming. At first, it devoured me. Then it became the soil where I rebuilt. After her voicemail, I sat on the edge of my bed, my tiny studio with its stained carpet and buzzing fridge, and just let the quiet settle in. No rage. No vindication. Just clarity. She was out of my life. For good. And I didn't need closure from her. I had already given it to myself. I thought that was the end of it. But healing has a strange momentum. The more you walk forward, the more the past sends shadows behind you, some long, some short, some hiding things you hadn't seen before. About 3 months after the DNA test, I received a thick envelope in the mail. No return address. Just my name, in neat handwriting, across the front. Inside, a stack of printed messages, screenshots, emails, DMs. All from a fake social account she had used over the past year. It wasn't just lies about where she'd been. She'd impersonated me online. She'd used my name to message other women, saying twisted things, flirting, sending links with viruses attached. A part of her manipulation strategy, I guess, to make me look unstable, unfaithful, even dangerous. Buried near the bottom was a message from her ex to a friend. She plays him like a violin. Dude really thinks that baby might be his. LMAO. My hands shook. I dropped the papers. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was character assassination. But you know what? I didn't panic. Because I had changed. I called my lawyer. We added defamation to the growing folder of offenses. I filed a police report, clean, factual, emotionless. And then I did something that surprised even me. I reached out to one of the women she had messaged pretending to be me. I apologized. Explained the situation. Sent documentation. Her reply. I figured something was off. I'm sorry you went through that. I've actually been through something similar. We kept talking. Not romantically. Just two people with scars and honesty. She ended up being one of the first real friends I made post-breakup, someone who reminded me that connection without manipulation still exists. Then came the twist I never saw coming. I was helping with a local community center project, building shelves in the library, donating extra books. The director, an older woman named Lena, pulled me aside. Are you the guy from that article? The one about financial abuse? I nodded, sheepishly. She smiled. We're starting a mentorship group for young men from broken homes. Would you come speak? I almost said no. But something inside me, maybe the ghost of who I used to be, said yes. That day changed everything. Standing in that room, facing 6 boys between ages 12 and 17, I told my story, not as a victim, but as a survivor. I told them how I ignored red flags, gave too much, doubted myself, and how I let love turn into servitude. But most of all, I told them about the moment I realized no one was coming to save me. And that was okay. Because I saved myself. One kid raised his hand. What would you do if she came back and said the baby is yours after all? I smiled. Not bitter. Not amused. Just, solid. I'd ask for a new test. And if it was mine, I'd fight for custody. Not out of revenge. Out of love. But I'd never go back to her. Because being a father doesn't mean being a prisoner. Weeks passed. Life grew richer. I started sleeping again. I bought new music gear. Got offered a part-time job at the community center. Slowly, my story became something other people leaned on, and in that, I found a strength I never knew I had. But then. One rainy Tuesday morning, I got a call. A number I didn't recognize. A voice on the other end. Is this Elijah? Yes. This is Rachel. I'm the social worker handling a case involving a child, whose mother recently surrendered parental rights. She listed you as the potential biological father. She's since disappeared. My heart froze. What child? I whispered. A baby girl. 5 months old. I didn't speak. Not for a few seconds. Maybe longer. The words, baby girl, echoed in my ears, bouncing around my ribcage like a ricochet. I thought I wasn't the father, I finally said, voice barely above a whisper. There was a DNA test. The social worker, Rachel, paused on the other end. We've reviewed some irregularities in that initial filing. The man listed in that test wasn't you. Your name was forged. What are you saying? I'm saying it's very likely that the first test was rigged. And you might actually be her father. I had no words. Not rage. Not fear. Just a strange mix of grief and hope. I was being asked to revisit the deepest wound of my life. And yet, somehow, there was a light at the end of it. 2 days later, I stood in a cold, sterile room with a cotton swab in my mouth, my jaw clenched. The nurse was kind, gentle. She'd probably seen 100 men walk through with the same look in their eyes, half hope, half terror. Then they brought her in. Wrapped in a soft pink blanket. Eyes like mine. And the moment I saw her, I broke. It wasn't like the movies. I didn't fall to my knees or weep dramatically. I just stood still, unable to breathe, tears quietly slipping down my face. Because something in me knew the truth before science could prove it. She looked at me, and didn't cry. Just stared. Calm, observant. Like she was waiting. The results took a week. I didn't sleep much. Every night I sat with my guitar, strumming the same 3 chords. I didn't write a song. I just played, trying to keep the rising tide of panic at bay. Because if she wasn't mine, I didn't know what I'd do. And if she was, I didn't know if I was ready. But when the call came, Rachel's voice didn't waver. "She's yours, Elijah." I sat on the floor, phone to my ear, hands shaking. And for the first time in a very long time, I prayed. Not out of desperation, but out of pure, crushing awe. She had named the baby Lily. But I renamed her Maya. Maya means illusion. And I thought it was perfect, because my whole life had been wrapped in illusions until her. I took parenting classes. I filed for custody. I got a crib off Craigslist and painted the studio walls a soft sage green. My landlord waived 2 months' rent when I told him. My boss gave me flexible hours. People showed up, in ways I never expected. Turns out, healing doesn't isolate you. It magnetizes the right kind of people. The first night I brought Maya home, I sat in the rocking chair I'd found at a yard sale. She was asleep against my chest, impossibly small. I whispered a promise into the top of her head. "I will never make you earn my love. And I will never let anyone use you the way I was used." That was the moment I stopped living for survival, and started living for purpose. She grew. I grew. I didn't date for a long time. I didn't need to. Maya and I built our own little world. On weekends, I played music at the local coffee shop while she napped backstage with noise-canceling headphones. At night, I told her stories of monsters and kings and brave girls who conquered their fears. I even self-published a children's book, Maya and the Mountain. It sold 37 copies, and I framed the first dollar. It wasn't perfect. But it was ours. Then came the letter. No name. No return address. Just a simple envelope left in my mailbox. Inside, a photo of her, my ex alone. Sitting on a hospital bed. Eyes hollow. Hair buzzed short. The letter read. "He left me. I have nothing. I couldn't do it. I'm sorry I lied. Maya deserves more. You deserve more. You were always the better one. Please tell her that I loved her, even if I never showed it right. J." I stared at the letter for a long time. Then I folded it and placed it in the back of Maya's memory box, beside the hospital band, the test result, and a photo of the day she came home. Not for her to carry, but so one day, if she asks, I'll have the whole truth. But here's the twist. 6 years later, I submitted a DNA test to an ancestry service. Just curiosity. Family tree stuff. A few weeks passed. And then I got the notification. You have a close match. Another daughter. 3 years older than Maya. Same mother. Born in another state. I reached out to the adoptive family, slowly, respectfully. We started a conversation. Letters, photos, Zoom calls. And now, Maya has an older sister. And I have 2 reasons to stay standing. There are moments in life when time doesn't move forward, it folds. Like the creases in an old letter. Like the lines on a tired face. Holding the photo of my second daughter, the one I never knew existed, I felt every part of me fold into itself. Not in pain this time. In wonder. Her name was Sienna. She had my eyes. My chin. Her mother's smile, softened by time. She had been adopted at birth, raised in a small town 2 states over. Her adoptive parents were kind, open-hearted people, writers and gardeners, married 20 years. They'd always told Sienna she was adopted. And she had always wanted to know where she came from. She just never imagined she had a sister. The first Zoom call was surreal. Sienna sat beside her adoptive mother, nervously twirling a bracelet on her wrist. I held Maya on my lap, gently rocking, whispering soft reminders, "That's your sister, baby. Say hi." Sienna waved. Maya waved back, her little fingers clumsy but full of excitement. I wasn't sure what to say. I wasn't ready for this, but it didn't matter. Life doesn't ask for permission to change. We talked for nearly an hour. About music, she played piano, school, she hated math, her curiosity about where she came from. I told her about my life, the podcast, the coffee shop gigs, the book. I didn't lie about her mother. But I didn't condemn her either. She was complicated, I said, finally. But I think she loved you. In the only way she knew how. Sienna just nodded. I don't hate her. I just needed the truth. The first in-person visit happened that summer. They came to town and stayed in a small Airbnb near the river. I met them at the community center where I now worked part-time, mentoring teenagers who'd come from broken homes just like mine. Sienna ran up and hugged me before I could even introduce myself properly. I froze, then melted. Something cracked wide open inside me. She smelled like lavender and sunscreen. She held on tight. And Maya? She followed close behind, holding a little stuffed bear in both hands. She held it up shyly. "This is for you," she said. Sienna smiled, bent down, and accepted it like it was made of gold. It was. We spent 3 days together. Parks, ice cream, music. It was strange and easy at the same time. Watching them bond was like watching the universe correct itself. On the last day, we sat beneath the same tree I used to lie under when I was rebuilding my life, back when the world felt like it was made of shattered glass. Sienna turned to me. "Do I call you Dad?" The question hit harder than anything else had. I thought for a moment, then said quietly, "You can call me whatever feels right to you. There's no wrong answer." She smiled. "I think I'll call you Elijah. For now. But maybe someday." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Later that night, after they left, I sat at my kitchen table with a bottle of water and a pen. I opened Maya's memory box again. I added something new. A photo of her and Sienna, holding hands in front of the river. And a small, handwritten note. "Family is who shows up. Truth is what saves us. And love? Love is what we build." But something still lingered. I couldn't stop thinking about her, my ex. Not with longing. Not with hate. Just with the unfinished heaviness of a book with the last page torn out. So I made a decision. I drove to the treatment center listed in the back of that anonymous letter. The receptionist gave me a long, quiet look when I said her name. "She checked out 4 months ago," she said. "Left no contact information. But..." She reached into a drawer. "She left this, just in case someone came looking." A sealed envelope. My name on it. In her handwriting. I sat in my car for a full hour before I opened it. Inside. A photo of Maya as a newborn. I hadn't seen that before. A necklace. A tiny gold locket with the letter M engraved. And a letter. "Elijah. I don't expect forgiveness. I'm not even sure I deserve to write this. But I want you to know, I knew Maya was yours. I just didn't want you to leave me. I thought if you believed she wasn't yours, you'd walk away quietly. I was wrong. About everything. You were the only one who ever really saw me. And I ruined it. I ruined us. I ruined you. But I see the pictures. I saw the article. The bookstore posted your children's book. I know you made a world for her that I never could. Please tell her I loved her. Please tell her I tried. Please, don't let her become me. J. I folded the letter slowly, like I was closing a chapter not just in a book, but in a life. I didn't cry. Not for her. Not even for the past. I cried for the boy I once was. The boy who thought love meant sacrifice. That pain was something you had to earn your way through. That being enough was always just one more act of giving away too much. That boy was gone. In his place stood a father. A protector. A builder. And maybe, finally, a man at peace. The weeks after the letter felt different. Not lighter, grief doesn't vanish, but quieter. Like the storm had finally passed and the silence it left behind wasn't hollow anymore, just peaceful. I kept the locket in Maya's memory box. She wasn't old enough to understand its weight yet. But one day, she would. And when she asked, I'd tell her the whole story, not just the pain, but the truth, the strength, the choices. Especially the choices. Because the most important thing I ever did wasn't surviving betrayal. It was choosing not to pass it on. Life settled into a rhythm again. Maya was growing fast, curious, independent, stubborn. She asked why about everything, from how clouds form to why sad songs sound prettier. I tried to answer every question honestly, even the ones that made my throat tighten. Sienna and I talked weekly. Her adoptive parents, Jen and Michael, sent photos of her school play, her science fair trophy, her attempts at baking, which often ended in flour explosions. She was thriving. She had a loving home. And still, she wanted to know me. Then, one evening, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. From Jen. Elijah. You've probably sensed it already, but I wanted to say it out loud. Sienna is forming a bond with you that is growing deeper every week. We never intended to keep her from her roots, we've always told her the truth. But seeing her with you, hearing the way she talks about Maya, something's shifted. She asked us if she could spend part of the summer with you. Just a couple of weeks. We talked it over, and we're open to it, if you are. You've built something beautiful from pain, Elijah. You've shown our daughter where she comes from doesn't define where she's going. We're proud to share her with you. With warmth. Jen. I sat at the table for a long time. Maya was drawing beside me, stick figures and flowers, her tongue poking out in concentration. I watched her, imagining her and Sienna side by side again, this time for more than a weekend. Could I do this? 2 daughters. 2 different worlds. One man with a history full of cracks. Yes. I could. Not because I was ready, but because I wasn't running anymore. Summer came, and Sienna arrived with a duffel bag, a stuffed dolphin named Blue, and a nervous smile. She hugged me tight and whispered, I'm really here. That night, we had spaghetti and garlic bread and chocolate milk in coffee mugs. Maya declared it sister dinner night and insisted we light a candle, like it was someone's birthday. They stayed up late giggling, building a pillow fort in the living room. I watched from the doorway, heart full and breaking at the same time. This was everything I never thought I'd have. This was the legacy I never planned to leave. 2 weeks flew by. There were hikes and bedtime stories, pizza picnics and backyard campouts. I watched them bicker and laugh, share secrets, build worlds out of Legos and wild imagination. And I realized something. They weren't just bonding over shared blood. They were healing something together, something I couldn't do alone. On Sienna's last night, I tucked them in and sat on the edge of the bed. Did you have a good time? I asked. Sienna nodded. I wish I didn't have to go back so soon. You'll come again, I said. As often as you want. She looked at me. Really looked. You don't feel like a stranger anymore, she said. You feel like someone I knew before I even met you. And for the first time since the day I heard I'm pregnant, I felt completely whole. After she left, I went for a walk. It was late, quiet. The streets felt familiar but changed, like everything had shifted just slightly. I passed by the old bookstore, the coffee shop where I used to play, the community center. Then I saw her. A woman at the corner, waiting to cross. Head down, holding a stack of papers. A baby sling strapped across her chest. She looked up. Not her, not my ex. Just someone who looked like who she used to be. But the look in her eyes, the exhaustion, the panic, the weight of carrying too much alone, stopped me. She dropped a bottle from the bag on her shoulder. It rolled into the street. I picked it up and handed it to her. Thanks, she said, her voice raw. No problem, I replied. And I walked on. Because the past no longer owned me. I thought healing would end in stillness, like reaching a mountaintop, looking out over everything you've survived, and sitting down, finally at peace. But healing doesn't end. It evolves. And just when you think you've arrived, life hands you the next climb. Summer bled into fall. Maya started pre-K, Sienna visited again in October, this time for a long weekend. She wore glasses now. Said she liked the way they made her feel, bookish and mysterious. Maya was obsessed with dinosaurs, declared herself a paleontologist princess, and insisted we dig for fossils in the sandbox. At night, after bedtime, I wrote. Not music, letters. Long, raw, honest letters. To the man I used to be. To the woman who broke me. To my daughters. Letters I didn't intend to send. But I needed to say the words out loud, even if only to the page. Because something had been knocking quietly inside me for months. A question I wasn't ready to face. Could I trust again? That question grew louder after I spoke at a regional mental health summit. The keynote speaker dropped out last minute, and a friend from the community center nominated me. At first, I laughed. What do I know about speaking? You know how to survive. That's more than enough, she said. So I said yes. I stood in front of 70 strangers, counselors, therapists, abuse survivors, foster parents, and told them everything. Not the clean, trimmed version. The real version. The doubts. The denial. The broken moments. The strength that came only after I stopped trying to be what everyone else wanted. People cried. People clapped. And afterward, a woman approached me. Late 30s, soft smile, calloused hands. She introduced herself as Nora, a trauma counselor and single mom. You said something up there, she said. That healing isn't about forgetting. It's about building with the cracks. I needed to hear that today. We talked for a while. And when she left, she gave me a card. Just a name, number, and a note. If you ever want coffee with someone who understands cracked things. I didn't call. Not for weeks. I kept the card in my wallet, touching it now and then like a worry stone. But eventually. I did. Coffee turned into walks. Walks turned into long conversations in my kitchen, while Maya played nearby, drawing suns with sunglasses and hearts with wings. Nora never pried. She never pushed. She just listened. And when she spoke, it was always real. She told me about her own past, an emotionally abusive marriage, raising her son alone, learning to unlearn the lies she once believed about love. The first time we kissed, it wasn't fireworks. It was safe. And safe, after everything I'd been through, felt like revolution. But trust isn't a switch you flip. It's a door you unlock, one deadbolt at a time. The first time she held Maya, I watched every move like a guard dog. The first time she met Sienna, I kept the conversation light, cautious. But then something happened that cracked the last bolt loose. Maya got sick. Not just a cold. The kind of sickness that lands you in the ER at 2 a.m., clutching her tiny hand as they thread and pour into her arm. I was alone. Sienna was back home. Nora came running the moment I texted. Sat with me for hours, silent, steady. Held Maya's other hand. Sang softly when I couldn't. The doctor said it was a severe virus. She'd be okay. But for those 3 terrifying days, I saw the kind of woman Nora really was. Not someone who came to fix me. Someone who chose to stand with me. When we got home, she cooked. Cleaned. Washed Maya's sheets and left a note on the fridge. You don't have to do it all alone anymore. I stood there staring at the note long after she left. Because that was the moment. The one I never thought I'd live to feel again. I wasn't afraid anymore. Later that night, I told Maya a bedtime story. Not a made-up one. A real one. About a man who got lost, who trusted the wrong people, who gave until he disappeared, and then started to build again. Not just a house, but a life. She asked, was the man you? Yeah, I said. It was. Does he win at the end? I kissed her forehead. He doesn't need to win, I whispered. He just needs to keep building. But just when I thought the final chapter was being written, I received a voicemail. From a woman I hadn't heard from in over a year. It wasn't my ex. It was her sister. Elijah, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. But you need to know something. There's more to what happened. She wasn't lying about everything. She was being blackmailed. Call me. I listened to the voicemail 3 times. Each time, it made less sense, and too much sense. She was being blackmailed. What did that even mean? The last time I saw her sister, Claire, was the week Maya was born. She stood outside the hospital, arms crossed, telling me I had no right to be there. Cold as ice. She called me a manipulator. Said I was lucky to be let go without consequences. Now she was the one reaching out. I paced for a solid hour before I called her back. I wasn't angry. I was exhausted. The phone rang once. Twice. Then she picked up. Elijah, she said, her voice smaller than I remembered. I didn't think you'd call. I didn't think you'd have anything left to say, I replied. She sighed. Fair. But I need you to hear me out. And I swear, this isn't about her, not really. It's about what happened to her. What was done to her. Silence. I didn't want to care. But I couldn't help it. For all the hell she put me through, there were pieces that never quite made sense. The first DNA test. The weird spending patterns. Her sudden spiral. Her final letter. Start talking, I said. Claire told me a story I wasn't prepared to hear. It started years ago, before me, before Maya. My ex had been in a controlling, toxic relationship with a man named Derek. Not her ex-boyfriend, the one I caught her with. Someone else. Someone she'd never spoken of. Derek had been older, rich, manipulative. He helped her clear debt, offered her a place to stay, promised to fix her life. And then slowly, he started recording things. Videos. Photos. Messages. Every mistake she made. Every lie. Every private moment. He collected it like a portfolio of leverage. When she tried to leave, he threatened to ruin her. Not just financially. He promised to destroy anyone she was with next. And when she met me, he made good on that promise. Claire said he sent her screenshots, edited messages that looked like I was cheating. Said he doctored the DNA request. She didn't even see the test results. He just told her I wasn't the father, and if she said otherwise, he'd send proof of my affairs to my employer and local police. She didn't believe it at first. But she was already cracked open. Already tired. Already scared. And when someone like Derek finds someone like her, it's not hard to tip the scales. Why didn't she tell me? I asked quietly. Because she was ashamed, Claire said. And because by the time she thought about telling you, she figured you hated her anyway. I was quiet for a long time. I didn't know what to say. Then Claire added, she's dead, Elijah. My breath caught. What? She overdosed. 2 weeks ago. The letter you got, that was written just before she relapsed. I swallowed hard. My hands were shaking. Claire continued, but here's the part you really need to know. Derek is still out there. Still doing it. And someone else, another woman, just filed a report. They're building a case. And your story might help shut him down. I don't know how long I sat there after the call ended. The grief hit hard, but not in the way I expected. I didn't mourn her so much as the version of her I might have saved. The woman who could have been someone else, if someone hadn't chained her from the inside. But most of all, I felt something new. Rage. Not against her. Not against myself. But against the man who sat in the shadows, watching my life crumble. Feeding on it. I met with the detective 2 days later. Brought every file I'd saved from the early days, the money transfers, the emails, the fake DNA lab name. Things that hadn't made sense until now. When the detective saw the screenshots and metadata, he raised an eyebrow. You were definitely targeted, he said. And you're not the first. I want to help, I said. He nodded. You just did. Later that night, I sat outside under the stars. Maya was asleep. Sienna had called to say goodnight. Nora was grading papers inside with her glasses slipping down her nose. And I felt the world shift again. This wasn't just survival anymore. It wasn't even healing. It was justice. Not revenge. Not punishment. Just light where there had been dark. Truth where there had been manipulation. And maybe, in some strange way, peace for a woman who never really escaped the trap someone else built around her. I stood up, walked inside, and kissed Maya's forehead. Then I joined Nora on the couch. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. I handed her a copy of my second children's book, just printed. The title read, Maya and the Mapmaker. A story about a little girl who turns lies into lanterns, and follows them through a forest of shadows until she finds her way home. "I think I'm ready," I said softly. "For all of it." She leaned into me. "You already are." The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not in temperature, just in spirit. Like the air itself didn't want to be breathed. Derek sat across from me at the defense table. Crisp suit. Polished shoes. The same hollow eyes I'd only seen in photos. The kind of man who looked straight at people like they were inventory, not humans. He didn't glance at me. Not once. That was fine. I wasn't here to be seen. I was here to testify. I stood and told the court everything. How my ex had slowly unraveled. How the financial manipulation began. The faked DNA test. The silent, creeping fear that replaced the warmth in our home. The moment I found out I wasn't the father, only to discover later, I truly was. I explained how Derek had forged communications, doctored documents, ghost-wrote guilt into her until she couldn't see her own reflection anymore. And how that web didn't just catch her. It caught me. It nearly caught Maya, too. People talk about survivors like they rise from the ashes on their own. But the truth is, most of us never saw the fire coming. We were too busy loving the person who was burning. When I stepped down, the room was quiet. No applause. No gasps. Just silence. The kind that follows impact. 3 more women testified after me. One was just 19. Another had a child she hadn't seen in 2 years. The third had tried to take her own life and survived. Each story, unique. But all woven with the same thread. Power used as poison. When the verdict came weeks later, I was holding Maya in one arm and watching Sienna build a birdhouse with Nora's son in the backyard. Guilty. On multiple counts, coercion, identity fraud, defamation, digital blackmail. 10 years without parole. I didn't celebrate. But I closed a door in my heart that had been left open for too long. The ripple from the trial spread further than I expected. The podcast I'd started with a friend, just 2 dads trying to make sense of broken love, got picked up by a nonprofit. We expanded it into a series of free workshops for men. Rebuilding after ruin. We talked about manipulation, financial abuse, fatherhood, forgiveness, accountability, and how to stop becoming emotional martyrs in the name of being good men. I never claimed to be a therapist. But I was a survivor. And sometimes, that's enough to save someone else. 1 year after the verdict, I published my first full memoir. Shattered Truths, Unbreakable Will. Same title as this story. The dedication read. To Maya and Sienna, may you never confuse love with sacrifice. To Nora, thank you for proving safe love is real. And to Jay, may your soul find the peace life never gave you. We held a small book launch at the community center. It wasn't glamorous. Folding chairs. Homemade cookies. A few press people. A lot of people I had once mentored. But then something happened I'll never forget. A boy, 16, wiry, quiet, walked up after the reading and handed me a note. It read. I was going to hurt myself today. But I came here instead. I think I'll keep going. Thanks for showing me someone can come back from it. That's when I cried. Not for the past. Not for pain. For the possibility still alive in others. Now. Maya is 7. She still draws dinosaurs, but now she adds stars and planets to every scene. Sienna is a teenager. Brilliant. thoughtful, fierce. She wants to be a writer. Nora and we're planning a wedding next spring. Something small. Something quiet. Something earned. So, here's how it ends. Not with revenge. Not with perfect justice. But with freedom. With truth. With light for those still wandering through their own dark places. Because I stopped being a victim the moment I stopped trying to fix the past. And started using it to build something stronger. And that, I think, is how you stop surviving. And finally, start living.